Hello and welcome to the Lean on Agile show. I'm your host Shaheen, and I have a dear friend of mine, Ricardo, that he accepted to join me. He's a senior Agile coach, and I got to know him a while back, 2012, 2013, when I was working with one of the organizations that they were going Agile, and he was helping with educating the whole organization and teaching the whole organization on Agile. And from that moment, we were connected, and I follow him, he follows me. And I thought this is a very good point in time to capture his thoughts on all of these Agile movements. And he shares with us all the years of experience that he has. Welcome, Rick, to the show.
Thank you, Shaheen. I appreciate it. It's good to see you again. It's been some time, but very good to see you.
Same here. So tell us to our audience who Rick is, and a little bit of background about yourself.
Sure. So Rick is a former engineer, former DevOps person, and currently Agile professional. Been doing this particular work since 2011, and something I really enjoy just as much as you do. But it started out as training. I really enjoyed the training aspect, and with the training, ironically, coaching sort of happened as well. So you and I met, of course, as you mentioned, while you were an employee with a particular client, and I came in and got to experience a really great environment of people who wanted to learn something different. And that sort of spurred me to want to continue to coach. Originally with your company, as you remember, it was mostly training. But eventually they started bringing me in to coach, and I enjoyed that. That has been my career for the last, 7 or 8 years now. So that's sort of who I am and how I got here.
Right, nice. So tell us some of the stories of coaching that you enjoyed, or get you going along as much as you like that.
Well, absolutely. So the things that get me are the aha experiences, the moments where people they capture something that I've said. They recognize that it does apply to them, and they recognize that the feasibility of the thought and how it applies to their work. And that's what really gets me going. That really energizes me. Challenging groups and companies as well, maybe people who are sort of reticent to participate, or non-believers, don't understand the specifics of it all. I have one client in particular, at one place around the same time I visited with you at your company. The man smashes his hands on the table and he goes, "Agile will not work here." My first thought was, "You're my guy. If I can convince you, I can convince anyone." And I did. And so those are the type of things that really, the challenge of it all is getting people to understand and believe things that they don't understand and they don't know to believe. So that's where I get a charge.
If I may say so, it's challenging because it's very hard to convince people that there's a better way. Because when you're telling them there's a better way, unintentionally or implicitly, you're telling them that your way of doing is not the most optimum way. Or They might interpret that you're telling me that I'm doing my job wrong, right? So it's very delicate matter in hand.
Absolutely. And ironically, I'm on the West Coast, and most people are very delicate about how you speak to them. I'm originally from the East Coast, and we have a very different way of speaking there. It's very direct, very forward. There's no massaging language. So there are times when you have to be conscious of how you deliver a particular message. One of the biggest challenges for me is to avoid saying that you're doing it wrong, and to say, "Have you tried this option? Have you tried this option? Do you understand why this option works better? Do you understand that this option can work better? What else have you been exposed to?" And if it's only one perspective that individual is coming from, then you have to be kind and considerate for them to understand that you're not making a judgment on that individual or their practice. You're just offering what you've seen as a professional. In my case, I've seen a ton, a lot of different companies and a lot of different roles. So I'm offering that. And that's where the coach comes in, because you can only become a coach if you've had the experience and the depth of understanding and exposure to things that can actually be beneficial for someone else. But you're right. It's a very tricky concept to tell someone that what they're doing isn't optimal.
Right. I'm glad that you touch upon the coaching aspect. So, and you said you need to bring lots of experience to see the different perspective. When I'm hearing there are so many different definitions of the agile coaching or what that coach should shape or should be. But I think what you were referring to was more like a sports coach, that he or she has done it himself. Now come there, maybe there's a different environment, and change it, the advice you're telling based on the environment that they are, or even if you have something out of the pocket that you already practice, just show it to them, right? Tell us more about how do you see coaching in the agile world.
So it's ironic that you mentioned the sports analogy. That's actually where my idea starts. You and I both have the former career path as engineer. So we've been on agile teams as contributors, individual contributors, or contributors as part of a team. So we've seen it done incorrectly. We've seen it done correctly. In my case, I've actually done waterfall projects as well. And I have the experience of the different types. I mean, like my favorite experience of all time was the extreme programming team I was part of. Oh my goodness. I mean, it wasn't Scrum, it wasn't Kanban. It was crazy. The chaos that when someone walked into the room, it looked like there was madness going on, but we all knew exactly what we were doing. There was so many conversations, and we were relating to one another, our situation, our challenge, what we're experiencing, and other folks would maybe hear that and decide, well, I can put what I'm doing on hold for a moment and give you a hand. So when I hear folks that come out of a particular space or place and they don't really have the experience, but they're calling themselves agile coaches, it's challenge to me to really take that seriously if they haven't actually experienced agile. Mm-hmm. It's a terminology, inch wide and a mile deep. They have a lot of academic understanding of what it is we do, but the practical application of those things oftentimes may be missing. And that's where it makes it challenging for folks like you and I, because oftentimes we come in behind those folks.
Right.
It makes it really, really difficult to try to not disparage a colleague that you don't know, but not disparage a colleague and still try to do what you're there for. And that's to help the customer and help that particular client improve in a particular area.
Right. This is what I typically refer to the third wave of agile coaches there that coming in, right? So the first one, like they come in, no one listens to them. The second wave, they're coming after the first wave. They get something there, but the second wave is typically someone with less investment needed because they lost hope on the first. They just want to try. So they're just typically the people by the book that they know something, not that much level of expertise. And they said, okay, so for the first and second wave, we have spent this much money. So let's get someone to get this one right. And the third wave that comes in typically gives the same advice as the first wave, right? But no people are ready, right, to receive that advice. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So how do you see the world of agile change in the past, many years that you are in that since I believe you said 2011, right? So it's almost 10 years. Like it's going to be more than 10 years soon.
Right. It's 10 years this year. The ironic thing, it's interesting you asked that particular question. My first experience with agile was in 2002. Right. I was working for a state government, and that's when I learned Scrum and a few other things. And it's ironic to me how the last 6 or 7 years, it seems like Agile's becoming popular to a lot of folks. Mm-hmm. I'm going, it's been around a long time, right. Scrum's been around since the 1990s, and the term Agile has been around since 2001. So these aren't new concepts. These concepts have been around a long time. And the one thing I see, ironically, it used to be engineers and testers or QA type folks, architects that became Agile practice professionals. Mm-hmm. That's what I recognize. Like, again, you and I have technical background. That's where we come from, because we experience the work. And so it makes sense that, well, if we want to help improve others, if we're really interested in helping other folks or helping our community of engineers, then we probably become Agile practitioners or trainers ourselves and teachers. What's been really interesting is the number of project management professionals that are coming into our space. Like that number is through the roof. And I've asked a few people a few times why, and it doesn't matter really, as long as the spirit of what they're doing centers around really trying to develop an agile mindset wherever they're working. As long as that's the case, I'm perfectly fine with whatever anyone's background is, but it takes learning. You have to know who Mary and Tom, Pop, and Dick are. Even if it's not Scrum, you have to understand Lean. You have to understand Kanban. You have to understand the benefits of XP. Not every team's going to fit in Scrum. Not every team's going to fit in Kanban. You have to know other things, and then you have to be able to guide folks through their challenges or through their first endeavors with these things. And again, if you're coming from an academic background, it limits how much success you may have in that space and how much credibility you can earn because you haven't had the experience as much as someone who's actually been on a team and done the work.
I was going to mention that one thing that might have contributed to many project managers are coming on board could be the fact that PMI, or the body behind project management professional certification, bought that, right? So, but they merged that discipline agile delivery into their body of knowledge. So they see lots of value into agile, and they are now bringing that into, and that's the whole new lots of people, and that could be. And it's a good thing, right? It's a good thing that many people are looking into what Agile is, but when it's a good thing that it's being popularized. But the challenge, let me ask you, what are the challenges of it being so much popularized, this Agile?
I see people, so there used to be qualifications you had to meet in order to get certain certifications.
Right.
Those qualifications are now out the window. A person can apply, just say, I want to be a particular scaling model professional, and it requires 5 years of experience as a Scrum Master to even get there. No one's doing the 5 years anymore. When I received my it was a certification with the Scrum Alliance that required, you couldn't study for it. You had to have 5 years of experience. And
CSV.
Right. In those days, you had to take the test cold, and it wasn't just multiple choice. It was actually several essay questions that went into it and so forth, and you had to wait a long time to get your test back and all the rest of that stuff. Well, that's those qualifications seem to have gone by the wayside. I've actually trained people that had no Agile experience. They were program managers or product managers or project managers. And they said, hey, guess what? I just got a certification in this, and I just got a certification. I'm like, you just learned this.
Exactly.
How are you going to help anyone? I mean, I understand what you're trying to do, and it's great. Congratulations on trying to build your future. However, there is, if you plan to teach people and coach people, then you need to have enough depth of understanding that goes beyond the basics.
Yeah.
Everyone focuses. So you asked me sort of what are some of the things I recognize that are going to challenge us. Everyone focuses on, I'm just going to use Scrum as an example. Everyone focuses on the events. Okay, we have our daily stand-up, and we have a retrospective, and I'm like, yeah, but do you understand why you're doing all that? Do you understand the benefit? If we're not going to production, if we're not delivering something of value regularly, frequently, hopefully at the end of every sprint, maybe even during the sprint, if we're not doing that, then all of those events, all those meetings you're holding, what's the value? It really isn't much. So
I haven't found this article, but I had to find. I'm going to find this article one day, and this article defines after the new product article that came out. It was describing why they came up with these events, and the reason that they came up with these events in the Scrum was because in that implementation that they have, what they were looking at the calendar, what are the meetings that we have, what are the outcomes that we are after, so let's put them into different formats so it doesn't take us that much time, and it's more impactful and effective, right? But no one does this. Like Scrum says this, you go and implement this, and then after maybe someone comes and asks you a question, do you know why are you doing this? And if people are ready, then they ask you. So one of the typical Scrum Master interview question that I ask, and most of the people get it wrong, is about who is responsible to run daily stand-up, right? If you read the Scrum guide, it's a development team, right? But typically when the people comes in, right, I'm facilitating as a Scrum Master and all that. So
I love the fact that you asked that question, by the way. That is the perfect question to get the depth of understanding that someone has. Because it's not a trick question, it's a trap question. If you're not thinking, if you haven't had the experience, you're going to say Scrum Master.
Right.
The same thing. Someone asked, and when I do interviews for folks, I ask if they have any Kanban experience or Lean experience. They say if they do, they say they do. I said, great. Does Lean have like a Kanban have a Scrum Master? Right? They have a Scrum Master, and it's like, yeah. I'm like, I make a note. No, they don't. Everyone owns the practice, and the facilitation responsibility travels throughout the entire team on a regular basis. How many retrospectives? How often do you have a retrospective in Kanban? I was like, well, this much. Well, it should be every week, and they should be cumulative and that sort of thing, and then a look back. And anyway, it's a challenge when folks are doing the stuff, I like to refer to it.
Right.
They're doing Agile, and instead of understanding why they should be doing it in the first place. And that's sort of the embodying of the understanding that you have to have an Agile mindset, why you're doing what you're doing and to what end. Right. It's to deliver high quality software frequently, or high value. And it doesn't have to be engineered. It doesn't have to be software. It can be any particular practice. I went into a hospital once for my son, and it was so cool to see they had a Kanban board in one of the examination rooms. I was like, yes, we're sticking outside of engineering. So that's great.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I was talking the other night, last night, to a couple of project management students from Vancouver, actually. And they were asking me, how can we do any of these in our personal life? And I said, go with Kanban, right? Have a personal Kanban board, try putting on something out there, and don't think about it. Just put things there, see the patterns, evolve through it, right? You are going to see, and that helped us in the pandemic a lot, right? Because we are all home, we need to do more chores around the house, and all that. So the personal Kanban that we built, it was much more helpful for us.
I kept one on my wall at work. I mean, I'm home, but I have a board right here where I actually have things that I needed to make sure I completed. We use whatever we wanted, but it was sort of a Scrum Kanban. I just kept the note in case things, and when I start seeing my whip go up, I have to make sure I manage it. So,
and thank you for putting this interview part of your whip.
Yes, I was able to fit it in. Anything for you. I was really happy to see that you made this career choice, and I've been so impressed with how well you've been doing.
I appreciate that. Really, I had really good mentors alongside the way. It was yourself, it was Jason Little that I actually remember I was doing one retrospective. I was so proud of it. I read the retrospective book by Esther Derby and Diana Larson. I embodied it. I thought about it a lot. And then there was one retrospective that I did, and I saw that Jason was helping me, and he was so off. I was asking join, jump in, and he was very offhand. And at the end, he just gave me one recommendation, and I was like, oh, this coach sat there for the full hour and just gave me one recommendation. And then when I started coaching people, I realized how much valuable that one recommendation was, right? Because you don't want to. So anyhow, long story short, I had really good mentors such as yourself and good community support. So I'm a big fan of community because they supported me a lot, and I'm helping them as well. You talked about a CSP, and I remember those days that you need to apply for those kind of approvals, or it felt more like a community approval of you, right? So you need to provide some example of how you contributed to the community. Did you have a blog post? Did you have a conversation with someone? What was the outcome? I applied for that, and then I got that after, I guess, for like 6 months took it for me to take it or get it or something. And then I was so proud of it, right? That and they changed the whole thing, right?
Yeah, now anybody can get it.
Right. And then they build up the leadership track that anyone can get it, right? They change those tracks. But isn't this an example of going back to the old ways of how we know to do things? Let me be more clear. So, for example, we are going into teams and try to change their habits, right? Try to change the process. Like they might do something for a while, they might go with a new process, but when something strange happens or when something critical happens, they go back to their old habits, right? And I think that could have happened to the Agile community as well. There was so much demand coming their way, so they were not able to handle those. And then they said, okay, so we are going to change this program because we cannot. So they go back to the old ways of doing these.
That's a distinct possibility. It's interesting you bring up the whole idea of the reversion, going back to what's familiar. Whenever I'm coaching, I'm constantly looking at that. I think I found a time. If you've been working with an organization for about a year and a few months, it's almost like everyone now knows more than the coach.
Mm-hmm.
And they stop listening to you. They just stop listening to you. Yeah. We're going to do this anyway. And I'm going, okay. And when I was a consultant, when I'm consulting, the first thing I think is, okay, it was time to move on. Right. They've moved on for me.
Right.
I've obviously done the best, the most that I could do. But usually it's new energy comes in and someone wants to make a name for themselves. So consequently, there's a diversion away from the best practices, away from the things that are proven to work. And again, as you mentioned, when odd things happen or challenges pop up or deadlines surface, immediately everyone wants to go into, well, I know I can control this if I do the following.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And they missed the point. It was it was giving up the control and addressing the need at the moment. Like, instead of trying to control it, just address the need at the moment reduces everyone's stress and the work gets done. Now, when you start trying to control it, now you've decided to own the stress and everyone's feeling it all at the same time. And now you're putting additional pressure on yourself instead of just letting the work do what it does. Mm-hmm. And then the classic symptom of that is overcommitment.
Yeah, true.
That's usually the first thing that happens. Teams overcommit and it's like, okay, you're not gonna deliver.
Right. Overcommit, commit for the team instead of the team, right? We commit for someone else, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The leads, right? You have the lead engineer. He's the one that makes, or she's the one that makes the decision who can do what. And I'm like, well, then have the lead engineer do all the coding then.
Right.
See how far that goes.
So this is a good segue to talk to you or ask you your advice for us. What would you do if the coaching doesn't go as well as you intended to, right? So you have some plans in your mind, you go with a consulting mindset that I'm going to take them like to the point A, but what are you going to do if you see resistance, you see people not listening to you? Well, tell us more about your experience.
The very first thing is I retrospect. I have to understand if it's me, did I miss something? Was there a detail that I left out? Was there a symptom that I overlooked? Was I moving too fast and I picked the wrong approach? I began to really examine my behavior first. Then I usually refer to colleagues. My mentor in particular, the person who's responsible for me even doing this work in the first place, he's in Vancouver. You might even know him. His name is Steve Adolph. I'm not sure if you know who Steve is, but anyway, Steve, he's always there for me. So whenever I reach out to him and say, look, I'm going through this. Am I seeing this wrong? I mean, should I be thinking about it differently? What would you do? What have you seen? What have you experienced? So that's the community piece that you're talking about. Right. Being able to leverage one another makes it easier to recover quickly if you have a challenging event. Now, once I've done that, then it becomes if it's a matter of will, the team or the organization's not willing to participate, then I have to go find whoever my advocate is within that organization, the reason why I'm there, to sort of put it in people's minds that I'm there for a reason. And so you just can't reject the coaching. You have to be willing to accept it because your company's paying for this at some point. So first I do the reflective bit to understand if it's something that I'm missing, something that I'm not doing correctly. Once I'm pretty sure that I've covered my bases in that way and maybe even made a few adjustments. If I'm getting the same result, then I have to go find my advocate.
Right. One of the coaches that in Toronto that I know of, the first thing that he would do for the engagement, he would go and sit with the team and say, hey, your organization is paying me this much, and I'm here for a reason. You guys tell me, what do you think that I'm here for? So, and that's his opening. I want to understand, like, what do you guys see me here as? What job am I being hired to do here, right? And if at that point the team is not having the same expectation as you, so you're on the different spaces. You need to level those spaces out, right?
Right. And in fact, my typical approach is when I engage a team for the first time, I'll spend 2 weeks. I'll let them know I'm going to attend your events. I'm a fly on the wall. I want to understand what you do. I want to understand how you operate, how you work. Before I can tell you anything about how I can help improve things, right, I have to understand if there is a problem in the first place, if there's something that we could do differently. Can't do that until I've had an opportunity to observe your team.
Exactly.
So it's about 2 weeks. I'll go in and I'll usually folks, some people pull me right in. They go, why don't you come on in, coach? Help us with this. I'm like, okay, great. That's the dream scenario.
True.
But in most cases, we don't have, there's always a little reticence to participate. So it's like, yeah, we have this. And when I get that, I usually get kind of excited because I'm thinking, all right, great. That's my person. If I can get that person to see things a little differently, then I've actually done well in my position here.
Yeah. I had conversation, or these recruiters that were calling me, and I was asking them, what is the mandate for this engagement? And if the mandate is very specific, right, these are the mandate that you need to do. I'm like without knowing the team, without understanding the situation, how can I tell you that I can deliver this in this 6 months or a year, right? So like those are the environments that are less motivated to go and consult in, versus like if there's a place that they accept you for 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks they come and tell you, okay, so let us know how can you improve us, right? That's the better, and I'm happy to see you operating in that way. Nothing less expected of you, my friend.
I've told companies I've worked for, hiring managers, I said, never hire the Agile coach that's going to tell you what they're going to do to make things better.
Right.
First time they say, I'm going to do this to make things better, you could say thank you, let them finish the interview, end it early, and look at someone else, because they're not, it's about them. It's not about the people they're trying to serve.
So you are in the professional life, I'm sure, at least from 2002, like or even before that, right?
Java programmer, 2002, right. Exposed to Agile, Scrum for the first time. Al Shalloway was my first trainer.
Well, what if you look back at your career? What was the big break in your career? Right? What is the one thing that highlights most, and how do you get there?
I was at an insurance company. This is in 2011, and so there had been a few of those. The first one was in 2006 when I decided I didn't want to be a programmer anymore. And I became a release engineer, DevOps professional at that point. Still hadn't been coined until 3 years later, but that's the work I was doing, all the automation and so forth, and continuous integration, writing my own continuous delivery routines and so forth. And that was the first one. The second one was in 2011. While working at an insurance company, and our CIO asking who has Agile experience. I'm like, well, I've got a ton, and I recommended that we do a trainer routine. So if you're going to bring these consultants in to teach us Agile and Scrum, as a large organization, then why don't you hire and take some of us, have them teach us how to do it. That way we don't have to keep paying high price consultants for long periods of time, and it's a grow your own environment. It's grow your own community that way. And that was the second one, because that's when I stopped doing the DevOps work I was doing and became strictly an Agile practitioner in 2011. And it was a trainer first, and then trainer coach. And then it's been director of this and that, and so forth. And one financial services company I worked at was a great time there. It was really a lot of fun. Ground up, they needed help. They wanted to try a large agile transformation effort, and I got to be part of that. It was excellent.
Nice. So many people heard about Agile and probably know of Agile, but for the people that are new to this space, right? What are your suggestions? How do they start? So I can tell that one of the suggestions that you are going to tell them is don't do it by the book. Think about it, because you mentioned that already. Correct me if I'm wrong if that's not your suggestion. But how do you tell a person that wants to start in the Agile space where to start from?
A bit of both, actually. I would actually say, please, if you're gonna practice Scrum and you want to be a Scrum Master, read the Scrum Guide. Understand what's actually what it says at a minimum is required to be a Scrum practitioner at that point. Mm-hmm. But don't stop at Scrum. That's one of the other things I would recommend. Read several different approaches to implementing agility. You mentioned Discipline Agile. It's ironic that the PMI also had the ACP program.
Right.
They're Agile certified practitioner, which I taught that course as well. So it's more than the more you learn, the more you've read, the more you've experienced, the more rounded a picture you get. So when I mentioned the lean agile mindset and the why we do it in the first place, all these themes just keep coming back. They keep repeating themselves, and it becomes a sort of an echo that now makes it clear. The reason why we do this is to a particular end. The reason why it works is because we were looking out for making sure we have group participation. There's no heroes. The one thing I recommend is never to be a hero, right? Mm-hmm. We don't need those. We don't need people that think they can do all the work and overcommit for the entire team and then not deliver. So meet with an Agile coach, meet with a Scrum Master, find someone, a product owner that's been doing it for many, many years, and have conversations to learn what we think about more than anything else. When I hire folks whenever I get an opportunity to hire folks as a leader, one of the first things I mention is I'm hiring you for how you think. Mm-hmm. I can teach you that which you do not know, but I can't teach you how to think.
Yeah, exactly. I was in a position to hire people, and there was this lady that I hired, and she was coming, I believe, from a QA background, but she was coming as a Scrum Master, junior Scrum Master. I hired her as an intermediate one because the way that she was thinking was phenomenal. And now, like after maybe 3 years, she became an Agile coach, and one of those ones that they think about what you should be doing instead of what the book tells you to do or what others following, right? So and those are very unique people to find. Like if you get the chance to work with these people, and it challenges yourself as well, because there is another person that is thinking, he or she has a different perspective of thinking and is going to give you a different look at the puzzle that you're trying to solve, right? Because at the end of the day, we are solving puzzles, or we are problem solving, right?
Yes.
You're problem solvers.
Ironically, so I want to tap a little bit further on that. I have a program manager, professional, 22 years in project management and program management, and they're approaching agility for the first time. This person, she has been able to do the one thing I've never seen anyone else do, and that's flip from the project management expectations she has on a regular basis and still have a lean agile mindset. It's mind-blowing. Nice. And I encourage her as often as I can. Like, I always spend time sort of making her recognize how well she's doing, so she doesn't have to wonder, am I doing any of this right? No, you're doing great. Right. Keep doing that. And so now her confidence is starting to solidify a bit in the space as well. Like in the program management space, she has no doubts. Well, now she's starting to feel very comfortable in the Agile space. And I consult with her on a regular basis. She always reaches out, which is really nice because, again, if you want to get great at something, maybe you should find someone who's had more experience than you to learn how to get. That's what I did. And I think that's what all of us do at some point.
Right. Yeah, and that was a very good point that you mentioned at the community as well. I forgot to add to that. It's not only the community aspect, but it's having one person that has very strong tie to that person, so that anytime that you have something, you can get bounce back ideas, like even a coach's coach, if I may say, right? Everyone needs a coach, right? Because when someone else asks you, what else can you do? Like, until someone else asks you that question, no matter how many times you ask yourself, you are not going to probably find another answer to it, right? So that's a very good practice, and I'm doing it myself as well.
Yeah, I love doing that. It helps.
Yeah,
I call it a sanity check, but whatever term suits you.
Right.
It's also humbling. Also, when you get to be a person that's sought after as a coach, sometimes our egos can get a little full.
Sure.
And I'm constantly trying not to be that. I don't want that. I don't need that. It's too easy to fall into that trap. So I refer to my colleagues and say, hey, I have a situation. I'm thinking about doing this. I want to do this. What do you think? We'll spend an hour on it sometimes, and I feel great coming out of it, because it's like, maybe it was what I was going to do in the first place. Maybe not. And I have a different option.
Awesome. One question that I typically ask my guests on the show is about the Elevate Change name. What do you think about it when you hear Elevate Change?
So I just participated in a conference with the company I'm working on, and I did one called Embracing Change. It doesn't have to be difficult. So, so when I see Elevate Change, it actually made me smile when I saw it. I see Elevate Change as recognizing that there's a natural reticence in a lot of folks to change in the first place. And so consequently, we avoid change, even though we all know it's going to happen. Yeah. You know it's going to happen. So by elevating it, by putting change in the forefront, and when I see Elevate Change, I say, put the change out front. Everyone understands things are going to be different real soon. Mm-hmm. So we're going to deal with that thought first, and then we'll deal with how to address it. But first things first, we have, at least if you're asking me what I think, that's what I think of the name Elevate Change. It's like you're putting a change idea up front.
That was perfect. Even better than the time that I was trying to find rationale behind naming it. So awesome. So we are almost to the end of the session, Rick. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience? Anything that is on your mind?
Sure. What I would like to share, probably more than anything else, is that some of us benefited from something that inspired us to choose this as a career. I had a person recognize talent in me and spent time and invested in me, just like you say, the mentors and so forth that you work with and colleagues encourage you to do the same. My mentor made me make a promise, and that was that if someone shows the kind of interest that I have, that I do what I can to share. And in our time together, I didn't have enough time because I was traveling so much to really commit to assisting as much as I could with you. And I apologize for that, but I'm making up for it in other ways. I'm giving whenever I can. So for all of us professionals who do this for a living, I would just say it's a gift and that we should share it. That's it.
That's a very good advice, and no need to apologize, my friend. Like I learned more than you would even imagine from yourself. What is the one book that you recommend for people to read these days?
Okay. I used to recommend the Agile Samurai all the time because it was a fun read. It was a very fun read. I don't know if I recommend it to you.
Yeah, I read that because of you.
Yes, it's a fun book. It's a really fun book, but more importantly, it covers cradle to grave Agile practice. I mean, from the time you have a new team forming all the way to you delivering things to the customer. And I recommended that book on a regular basis. Not Turn the Ship Around, not that one. It was doing Agile right.
Doing Agile right.
And I recommend that for leaders more than anything else. Anyone who's going to have responsibility for initiating a transformation in particular, because that seems to be the flavor of the month. Everyone's transforming, but doing Agile right. And when leaders can recognize that you can't solve the same problems, you can't solve the problems that you have with the same thinking you use to create them. That Taylorism is not the same as leading an Agile transformation. That's sort of the thing I recommend, is for people to read that book in particular.
Thank you, Rick. I remember reading the Agile Summary, and that was a fun read. I have the book. I might go reread it again, because from the different time zone that you are in, like you get a different understanding and different learnings from the book as well. So doing Agile right, I haven't. I'm going to put it on my list as well. Thank you so much for being on the show, Rick. Is there anything else that we should talk about that we haven't? Any last words that you want to say? How to get in contact with you?
Okay, well, I don't have a webpage or anything like that. I sort of fly under the radar, Shaheen, right. But that's okay.
You're a hidden gem.
I think it's, I don't know, but thank you for that. I would say that if you wanted to reach out to me on LinkedIn, you can find me at LinkedIn under Ricardo Lee. That's where people usually find me. I have lots of contacts in that space, and folks discover me there. Thank you for doing what you're doing, for being a voice for change, for being a voice for our practice, and being such a good ambassador, delivering the message the way you do. I really enjoy it.
Thank you so much. Again, I'm standing on the shoulder of giants and the community, so I'm just doing what I can. Thank you.
All right. Have a wonderful evening.